If you have ever felt that little nudge that there's more for you, you may be in a place where you're asking yourself, what does more look like? What is my bigger purpose? Well, today I'm chatting with Quinn Tempest about how purpose is actually something we can create. It's not something that you just discover or that gets delivered to your front doorstep in an Amazon Prime box, although that would be really pretty cool. Quinn has made it her mission and her business to help entrepreneurs and small business owners uncover their unique purpose and bring it to life in everything they do in their business, both online and off. I can't think of a better conversation as we start this new year off, so let's get to it. For tuning in today. I am so excited to kick off the new year, really continue kicking off the new year because we're already 2 weeks in. This is like 2019 is so a thing of the past. But I have so many conversations with those of you in our community around how do I actually clarify my purpose? So I knew that this was the perfect guest to bring on, especially as we kick off a new year. So I'm super excited to have you here today, Quinn. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is one of my favorite things to talk about both in life and business. So I just appreciate the invite.
I know. We are pretty audacious. We're recording this earlier in the morning than I normally record, and we're tackling, just like the tiny topic of what's your purpose in life?
Right.
So it's gonna be, we don't know where this is going to go. It could either be a really insightful conversation or I think it will just go with that. It's going to be very insightful.
You know what? We're both tired, so maybe we're so relaxed. We're just going to come up with some awesome, crazy stuff.
Well, you and I connected, I think where most great friendships start now that I look back in my life on Instagram.
Where else?
We both live in Phoenix, and you were someone who your energy just shines through everything that you do. So this was, I think we just had a chance to reconnect in person last week, but we were trying to go back to the timing of it all. And I think we connected before the first ever Powerhouse Women event.
Oh, for sure. Because you had maybe just finished your book or you were about to finish it. And that was kind of the stepping stone into the event. So I remember hearing about it at that time when we grabbed coffee. But wow, it's just exploded and grown so much since then. And I've been following along, but I think what you had said last week when we connected in person, you're like, I've been giving you virtual high fives for years, but we just never have reconnected. And I was like, me too. That's the same way I feel. So it's great that Instagram can keep us connected, although it's even better when we can do it in person or on a podcast like this.
I know it. And, this topic of purpose is really perfect because I know mine has evolved since the time that we met, and so has yours. So why don't you start us there? Tell everyone a little bit more about you and this journey that has led you to taking on this conversation of purpose in the really beautiful way that you have within your community and your programs.
Yeah, well, it's been a long, winding journey. And, I think the beginning of the year is always a great time to take a second and pause and just reflect on how did I get to where I am now? And for me, my path to both uncovering as well as deciding my purpose, because I think purpose isn't found, it is created, really started with me having absolutely no idea with what I wanted to do with my life. And so straight out of college, I took the first job that came my way. I really never had a specific intention for what I wanted to do. I was more honestly acting out of fear of not being able to pay my rent. And I mean, obviously these are like normal things, but for me, I think I just so much ignored who I was at my core and my own creativity that I just threw myself into this job. And honestly, I kind of lost myself in it. I didn't have really a sense of where my job ended and where I began anymore. And so I burnt out really badly in that first job, landing myself in the hospital for a few days. And the funny thing is now looking back, that hospitalization wasn't even the moment that woke me up. That intense situation wasn't the thing that made me step out of this bad habit I had created and actually establish boundaries for myself. Not even being hospitalized for burnout did that, which is just crazy to look back at that person that I was. And really, it didn't wake me up until I still remember this moment where I fell off my bike, just kind of by happenstance. I took the curb the wrong way and I completely ate it. And that was the moment when I actually woke up, because I didn't feel anything. Like, I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel adrenaline. I didn't even cry, which is kind of my go-to emotional response, right? And I think that was really the moment of, I have dug myself so far into some hole, and I don't know how I'm supposed to get out of this. I can't even feel anything anymore. And so that crystallization was finally what put me on the path to say, I can't live like this anymore. I need to actually dig deep and ask myself some hard questions, both what got me into this position and how can I get out of it? And so I ended up moving back to Phoenix, where I am now, and moving in with my parents, which is something you never want to do as a young woman. But that year that I was able to save up money and take time to just recover physically and mentally and spiritually was a great reset for me to then start thinking, well, what is my purpose? What is the thing that I want to bring to this world? How do I want to leave it when I am gone one day? And so it was just really those questions started kind of percolating in my mind. And then I started just testing out becoming an entrepreneur. And I think, a lot of times we think we're just going to get bonked on the head with our purpose. We're just going to suddenly know it. And for me, that was really the opposite. It was more of a journey of exploration, of experimentation, of trying things and seeing what worked, what didn't, what lit me up, and what made me feel defeated. And kind of through that journey, that's where I discovered, what? We don't find our purpose, we create it. We can be intentional about the impact that we want to make in this world. And I, as an entrepreneur, decided I want to make that impact through my business. And so I refined a very simple statement, which I call my purpose power phrase, kind of like a mantra that always runs through the back of my head. And so I say, and I declare that my purpose is to help people bring their ideas to life. And the why behind that is I want people to feel empowered. And what is more empowering than bringing a little thought that you had to reality and seeing it bloom, and I think that's such a cool connection with you is when I first met you, you were just thinking about Powerhouse Women and you were just thinking about this event. And I think what I really admire is how empowered you've become by empowering other people and by taking this little idea for collecting some women in the same rooms to talk about big things. And now it's this fully fledged, thing. It's a thing, and it's a really powerful thing. So that's really my story of just saying, I can define what my purpose is, and then I can be creative in how that comes to life through both my business and my personal world.
Yeah. Oh, I loved so much about what you shared. And I think the two key things that I just want to underline for everyone is the part that you said about your purpose doesn't come and knock on your door and find you like an Amazon delivery from the heavens.
Oh my God, 2-day Prime delivery. That would be amazing.
That would be amazing. And I think there was a time in my life where I thought, well, just got to find it. Like I was on some scavenger hunt versus what you distinguished for us, which is that we can create it. And sometimes it just starts with the seed of, well, what are you interested in? What are you curious about? What's the next thing that you can see to do? And that's how this journey actually unfolds. I don't know. Other people might wake up literally born with what they know what they want to do with their life. But I think for a lot of us, that's not the case.
No. And I think it's also a detriment to us to believe that we're just going to find it. That's kind of a reactive state, and it's kind of a messed up existential treasure hunt, right? Like you're always looking around the corner for what's just going to come to you one day. And I think I just like to shift the mindset to say, be proactive about the meaning you want to create for your life. And I think there's really two parts to this. It's first uncovering your purpose, because I do think there is a sense of reflection that needs to happen, that you look back on your experiences you've collected over your life. You look back on both the hard times and the good times and see what insights you can gain. And you also look at the people that really you admire and like, what is it about them that you admire? And then you start to almost use these as little pieces of a collage to both uncover and decide what you want to do with your life, and more importantly, why you want to do it. And then the second part of this is, okay, well, once you kind of know, once you have a general idea, it doesn't need to be perfect. This isn't a, your purpose isn't a test. It's not going to be graded. But once you kind of say, okay, I think this is generally what my purpose is, then you got to create it. And that's the fun part. That's where you get to see the magic of life unfold, where you say, I think my purpose is to bring people's ideas to life. So let me go test that out. Let me go, like for me, I went and volunteered at a homeless shelter for 5 years. And I saw my purpose come to life so much there because I was helping these kids really go past trauma to bring their creativity to life. And hopefully, what I taught them will live with them throughout their lives. Whereas in my business, it was very different. It was more tactical. It was like, okay, I'm going to design you a logo. I'm going to create a website for you. And I'm going to bring your business ideas to life because you can be empowered to sustain yourself through this work. So I think there's really two parts. It's the reflection and the uncovering and deciding what your purpose is. And then it's bringing it to life. It's the actual act of creating. And I think the more you can approach your life and your work as an art, as a creative process, I think the more fun it is, the less you feel like it needs to be perfect. It's more of like, let me throw some paint on the canvas and see what I like.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like describing this pursuit of purpose as an ongoing journey versus a destination. And that, when I tapped into that, it gave me so much freedom to just play and experiment and allow, kind of like you said, discover it and then create it at the same time, but also allow it to evolve as I evolved. Do you find that happens a lot of times with the people that you work with?
Yeah. And I think there's a quote, I'm not sure where it came from, but it's been in my journals for years. And it says something to the effect of, we are in a constant state of becoming. And we are always uncovering new layers, or we're just becoming a new person. Like I was just writing I do this weekly email called Postcards on Purpose. And my email today was very much about, am I the same person that made the decisions 5 years ago to get me to where I am now? Is there a through line connecting the past me, the current me, and the me that I don't even know is coming yet? And I think my answer in writing the postcard was, I think the purpose is the through line. Your purpose is the common thread that can connect all of the yous that you are becoming. I don't know if this is like way too metaphysical, but I do think there is something to, what is the connecting thread between all that we do. And that's really how I teach, my community members and everyone about purpose. It's not the what that you do. It's not your job. It's not your side hustle. It's not your career. It's also not the how you do it. It's not how you approach your work. I think it's the why. It's the underlying foundation that drives you to act. Yeah. And to your point about how it evolves, I think your purpose can come to life in whatever way you deem necessary. Like it can be translated in so many different ways. And that's why when I teach about purpose, I say it should be broad. It's not specific. It's not, I work with people to design websites so that they can blah, 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 blah. No, it's I help people bring their ideas to life. And then that statement can be translated in a myriad of ways. And it can evolve as you evolve because you're always changing. So I often think there is a belief that your purpose is the what or the how, but I will argue it's the why that connects everything that you do, and it can evolve and transform as you grow.
I love that. I love that so much. So, kind of staying on this topic of as we evolve and grow, I think a lot of us tend to self reflect as we enter a new year. So, on this topic, what are some of the most powerful questions we can be asking ourselves heading into the new year, just to make sure that our purpose is evolving or we're evolving in tandem with that purpose and how we are actually bringing it about? I'd love to hear just some of your recommendations.
Yeah, well, I think reflection is something that's so important in creating your purpose because it's really all about getting to know yourself, right? It's discovering who you are at your core and then how you want to bring that to life intentionally. Because for so many of us, we kind of just react to whatever life throws our way. And the idea of creating your purpose is to flip that on its head and to become proactive in what you bring into your life. So I think one of my favorite questions to start with in this process, especially around the new year, is what experiences have shaped me? And that doesn't mean it has to be a positive experience. Actually, I think the gems often come from the negative ones. The whole reason I started my own business was because I was so bad at being an employee and I burnt out and landed in the hospital. I didn't start it with any business plan in mind. I started it because I needed to take care of myself. And so looking back on those negative or positive experiences and what you learned from it is a really great gem to kind of bake into what you deem your purpose to be. It just makes you become more intentional of learning the lessons from the hard things. And then especially around the new year too, you kind of want to look forward and say, what is it I want to create in my life in 2020? And it doesn't necessarily need to be like a project or a specific thing. I actually encourage people just to decide on a few words. Like, what is it you need to feel more aligned with your truest self, with your purpose, with your why? And it could just be like space. You just need more space to create. That's something that is really resonant for me because I have been running from project to project, from city to city, speaking, and there's just a lot going on. And I keep coming back to this idea of I just need more space in my life for ideas to emerge, for me to be able to explore my creativity. Whereas I have other people who their word is, scale or growth or momentum, where they really want to take action. So I think like just kind of thinking of what do you need to be more in alignment with who you want to become, and also creating a vision for who you want to become, and I think this is we can't move towards something until we know what that something is.
Yeah.
And it can often be hard to think big picture for your life and your work. Like if everything was ideal, what would you want? And let yourself feel it and let yourself think it and let yourself just imagine it for 5 minutes. And that's going to give you a powerful vision to move towards, even though it might not happen fully how you think, because life has a funny way of pushing you in a different direction. But I think like creating a vision, especially in the beginning of the year, is a great way to set more of an intention for what you want to bring into your life.
Yeah, I love that. I love those questions. And I want to now bring it to what you said, which I think this is like so critical. And it's often where in our community we go to work, because I do feel like a lot of people have a sense of what even the seed of their purpose might be, the things that they want to create, but it's the action piece, the next step in starting to bring that to life and working through resistance and everything that comes up that can often be the stumbling block. So talk to me a little bit about that second piece of your work where it is about, okay, now we have to put the action behind it, because the purpose doesn't just like it doesn't arrive on our doorstep, it also doesn't just unfold before our eyes without us rolling up our sleeves.
Yeah, it's not like a Harry Potter wand that you just wave and things happen.
Would be cool.
I mean, that would be amazing, right? Yeah, that's a really good point. One of my biggest, I don't want to say pet peeves because that sounds negative, but I meet a lot of people that have a lot of ideas, and a lot of their ideas are great. They tell me they get so excited, and then they come back to me a year later with more ideas, and a year later. And I'm like, yeah, but what are you doing to bring that idea to life? And I'm fascinated with this process of taking this little seed, like you said, a little thought seed that just starts in your brain and bringing it to the big bad wolf of reality. But that's not an easy process, right? The process of creation and of taking a thought to reality is complicated. And I think action is often what's missing. Action is what, or the lack of action is what holds people back from ever making progress. And oftentimes it's rooted in fear, right? Like, I don't think I could do this. I don't think it will ever become what I envision. I'm not the right person to do this. The inner critic can be really loud and it can hold you back. Like, you can get in your own way more than anyone else. And that's what's really hard. So especially in my community, I have a whole framework about action taking. It's called the POKRs. So it's purpose, objectives, and key results. So really your purpose should drive any objectives you have. So say your objective is to start your own business. And then you think about, okay, well, what initiatives do I need to do? What are the projects I need to do in order to start my own business? Maybe it's, I need to get a business license. I need to create a business plan. Like, what are those action steps that you need to take? And then the key results is a really important aspect, because that's going to help you measure how well the initiatives are moving forward. So maybe, and that's really, it's all about measurement at that point. Like, did you get the business plan by this specific date? Or did you, get 2 clients by this date? You have to really put measurement on things, or you can just kind of spin your wheels for a long time. But everything should be rooted in purpose. Everything should be rooted in the why that these objectives are important. And then you just have to be honest with yourself. You have to say, am I making progress? If not, why not? And also, if I am, then I need to celebrate that. And you have to just create some kind of system in order to hold yourself accountable, or to find a community like Powerhouse Women, or I have my own membership community where everyone declares one thing they're working on every week, and that foots back to their purpose. And I really, really, really think this is where so many people just get in their own way and hold themselves back. Is they just let the idea simmer, and they don't ever put pen to paper to say, what do I need to do to make this happen? And I think one of the biggest reasons is because one idea is overwhelming. It could be this really big thing, but really you just have to break it down. You have to say, what are the things I can do in the next week, and the next 2 weeks, and the next 3 months, and just break it down into something that feels digestible. It feels actionable, but realistic.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you run into that with people just kind of like spinning their wheels and not moving the needle ever?
So, I mean, not only have I seen it, but I'm just going to turn it right back on myself. That was the mode that I operated in for a lot of years, quite honestly, leading up to what people see now as Powerhouse Women. And part of why I share the same ethos as you about helping people get out of their own way.
Yeah.
Because I know so personally how it felt to
Right.
get my own way, and how unfulfilling that always kind of chasing the next idea but never moving the needle really felt. And so I love that this is where I was going to take it, and you already went there, which is the power of community. And it wasn't until I sought out community that was going to hold me accountable to the goal that I set, the first one being writing the book. But then I also had to invest. And I've talked about this on other podcast episodes, so I'd love to hear your take on it. I think for me, when it came to creating that accountability, the only way I know that works for me, others might be different, but the only way that I know is when I put myself in a position where I am all in. And usually that means that I'm a little bit uncomfortable because I made a financial investment. And I wouldn't I wouldn't want to walk away from that. So then it gets me through those periods of time where, the resistance, the doubt, the fear is really, really loud, which I think that's the critical point that a lot of us, and I'm just going to point it back at myself, where I would inevitably get scared or something would just start to feel like I was encountering resistance, and I didn't realize consciously that I was doing it, but I would go back in search of safety, which is like the planning phase, because I was really good at making the plans. But the moment that I had to step into what I was afraid of, or my doubt or my fear, was the point where that was where I needed the accountability. And nothing has worked for me other than putting myself in community with others who are on the same journey, and typically being invested in some way that I'm not willing to quit on myself.
Yeah, well, I think, oh gosh, so many good things there. But I think first with the investment piece, I mean, money is energy, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, not even in a weird woo-woo way, like it literally is. You give $5 for a latte and that's what you get back. And that's
Energy.
yeah, and I think, the more that you understand that and take it seriously, like the more you're saying, I'm giving you, $600 of my energy, and I better follow through with this commitment. It's why I remember, like, I hosted like a free yoga class back in the day. And it was open to the community. I had probably 80 people sign up for it. And you know how many people came? Like 3.
Wow.
And I just think that shows the power of what an investment can do, because, you have skin in the game, and you have invested energy into something that you think will move you forward, and you better show up to it. But I will tell you, especially in like the online course, kind of system, there's a lot of people buying these things that just don't show up.
Yeah.
And it just fascinates me. It really does, of like, you have committed to this, you have paid a lot of money, and then you're not either showing up to the course, but you're also not showing up to yourself. And that's what's hard. That's what's difficult, is to see people make the move to invest in themselves, but then not follow through. Obviously there's so much to unpack with every single person's context, but I think you touched on something when you said, for a while, as soon as you would get to the action phase, you would kind of regress and just say, okay, well, I just need to do more ideas. I need to do more planning. And I always like to say that clarity is not built in your head. Like, you can't think your way to clarity. I mean, maybe on a good day. I think clarity is built through action.
Yeah.
The more you put out there, the more you do, the more insights you're going to gain. So whenever someone says, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, I was like, you don't have to know what to do. And you said this in the beginning, just follow your curiosity. So when people are asking me, well, I'm just not sure what my purpose is, I don't know what to do, I say, what are you curious about? And then what are like 1 or 2 things that you could do to follow that curiosity? So, I've had some people say, well, I really want to get into working with nonprofits, but I just don't know how to start. And so I say, why don't you look up a local networking event with nonprofit professionals, or why don't you just go volunteer for a day at a new organization just to see what happens? Yeah. And I think so many people just get caught up in the end result and just forget to enjoy the journey of curiosity and trying things and meeting people and seeing what insights come to you, because those are the insights that are going to move you forward and are going to give you the next thing that you can do, and then the next thing, until you feel like you generally have a more clear idea on why this all matters in the first place. So I think if anyone's going to get stuck or feel like that, just do something. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, just follow something that's even if it's watching a documentary at home, like, it doesn't need to be this big thing. But and I think the last point is about support and accountability. I'll be honest here, like, I've been in a bubble, my little entrepreneur bubble, for a long time, and like, Instagram has been really helpful for me, and that's how we met. And you maybe were one of the first people I met off of Instagram. Like, honestly, you might have been the first one. So I might
have that effect on people.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like I'm probably like told my husband, he was like, what? Like, well, you're gonna meet this random girl. And now it's like such a commonplace thing, right? But I think you might have been the first. But I think that's been really great for me to, connect with more like-minded people who get it. And then even last week, you and I were at this in-person retreat, and I was with, we were both with people we didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I had just been invited like 24 hours before, but the amount of just like momentum we could all build and clarity we could all build together was so much more than we could do on our own. And so I am definitely, that is an objective of mine, is to get out of my own bubble and talk with people who get it, and keep pushing myself to grow, because if we stay on our own, we're going to be in a standstill.
Yeah, well, or as we say around here, we're just not meant to do business or life alone.
Right. No,
that
would be no fun.
Way more fun, and we just accomplish so much more when we get to connect. And it's so easy for those of us who are, I love how you were sharing how you're not a great employee. I am also very unemployable. Yeah. And it's very easy for me to slip into my own bubble and just I've actually felt like that in the last couple of weeks, just needing to get through some projects, really clear my space for the end of the year. And there are seasons like that, but as I'm reflecting on what I need for the new year, connecting and really cultivating some of those relationships with people who are on the same path in a deeper way is really one of the things on my radar. So that retreat week, the couple days we got to spend in Sedona, was such a great reminder of why it's so necessary and so beneficial to carve the time out. It takes a little intention to do and to seek out those relationships, but it is it pays you back tenfold when you are willing to invest the time and energy in developing those kind of relationships, for sure.
Yeah. And, I was like a little sad last week with the retreat, just not that it ended, but just the fact that I've never done that before. And I've had my own business for almost 9 years now. I've never been in that type of environment. I loved every second of it. I think everyone should do that. And now, I have my online membership community, and I'm like, gosh, I need to figure out how we can get together in person.
Yes.
Although like the online connections are awesome and I think they're necessary, they just really pale in comparison and to the power of in-person connection. And especially when it's not just talking about business, like, probably 80% of the time we weren't. But those moments were just as special as well.
Yep, I so agree. And I can't remember the order, but I believe it's going to be publishing a week or two after this episode that you're listening to. I'm doing a whole episode on masterminds, both informal and paid masterminds that I've done, because that truly has been just like you said, even getting together in a room for a day or two with like-minded entrepreneurs has literally been the catalyst to everything we've done in the last 3 years. So I love that you brought that up too.
Yeah.
So I think this is kind of the perfect setup to talk a little bit about the online community that you have cultivated, which I think is really cool, that there is a place where this whole conversation around purpose is happening, but then the accountability piece is built in too. So will you talk a little bit about what inspired you to create your collective, what happens there, and what people can expect in 2020?
Yeah, well, I have to back up probably about 2.5 years. But I, for 5 years of my business, had a really large client, and they were half my time and more than half my income. And I kind of got to the point in the road where I needed to decide which path I was going to take. Should I really commit to this director of marketing role that I had, or should I create something of my own? And, I am an entrepreneur at heart. I have always been, since I was selling little Beanie Babies when I was little on the streets, of Phoenix. And so it was a really easy decision for me to say, okay, I'm going to build something of my own that's meaningful and impactful. I had no idea what that would be. I left this client. I really just wanted to give myself some space to decide and build clarity around what this idea would be. And so I was sitting on a plane coming back from one of my last speaking engagements with that client. And I was drinking some wine, watching a movie, and just like all of a sudden, I just had all these ideas. So I got my phone out and started writing like all of these thoughts that were just spilling out of my brain. And at that moment, I wrote something like, we find our purpose, we create it. And so all of these light bulbs went off, and I was like, create your purpose. I was like, that's it. It's all about being intentional about bringing ideas to life. And I want to help more people do that. And so that was literally the seed, was just like this little tipsy line that I wrote on my phone. And so for about a year after that time, I just kind of explored like, what would that look like? What would that be? And so I used Instagram to kind of test things out, to test the messaging and just see like, is this what people want? And I overwhelmingly saw that they did. And so I ended up hiring a woman to help me kind of formalize what this would be. And so I told her all of my ideas, and kind of through this process, she was like, you know what? I think you really need to have a membership community, because you can build in accountability for people to create their purpose. You can also teach them how to uncover their unique why. And then there is that natural support system that is built in to keep them accountable towards actually bringing it to life. So like when I came up with the idea, I thought it might be like an online course or, but it just really made sense to bring people together around a common goal. And so I ended up just designing this whole experience where they really need to declare their purpose. There is a piece of coursework in there where they reflect on their past, they create a vision for their future, they really take an inventory of their present, and then the most important part is they create an action plan. And so the community is there to support them as they are creating their purpose, as they are implementing their action plan. So I do master classes every month on different topics that the community needs. This month it was about, well, how do you attract your ideal clients and customers? Whereas last month it was all about time management. We have book club. It's just a really fun experience where I'm always creating new things based on what the community needs in order to create their purpose. It's all online. And I started my beta in September. It's going really well. And I'm going to invite new members in in about a month. So early February. And I just want to keep growing it, because I wish I had this when I started my business. I wish I had, people like you. I just want to like streamline the process and help them get to where other people are faster, and also not fall into so many of the traps that I see myself and others fall into. So that's really the goal, is just to help them actually uncover their purpose and then create it and bring it to life through their business or their side hustle or their career.
I love that. And I love how you have a through line that purpose isn't just isolated to what we do for a career. It really is something that bleeds into our entire life. So as we start to wrap this up, I would love if we would just talk a little bit about that, because I think oftentimes, especially I'm going to speak now for people that I talk to who haven't yet really identified theirs, or they're in a season where they're really exploring. And it's easy to look at people who look like they are on the way, or who look like they have it all figured out and they're just like off to the races, making that purpose come to life. But I don't think it's true for everyone that your purpose has to become your paycheck or your career. No. So talk to us just a little bit about how purpose can really become a part of everything that we do in our lives, and take that pressure off that it actually has to be the thing that pays our bills.
Yeah, I love that you zeroed in on that, because it comes up a lot, especially with my community members. A lot of them are entrepreneurs, but some of them aren't. Some of them just have an entrepreneurial spirit, but many of them have full-time jobs, and they also just have little side projects that are, passion projects. And so a lot of times they say, well, I kind of generally know my why. I know what it is, but I don't see how it's coming to life in my work. And I tell them, well, does that need to be the fullest expression of your purpose? Like sometimes we just have to pay bills, and sometimes that's just not that's not the expression of our purpose. Like my husband, he's an architect. He's great at it. He loves it, but that's not his fullest expression of his why. And that's okay. The whole goal of purpose and creating your purpose is just to become more intentional about where you direct your energy. So for me, my purpose is 100%, it comes to life through my work. Whereas other people, it's like maybe 50%. And their 100% is through their volunteer work or through their family life. And so it's less about it being one thing or another, and more about what is the through line that generally connects them all, and how can you direct that intentionally instead of reactively. And I think that's really the difference, is you want to create in your life and where that purpose most comes to life. For us, it's definitely our business, but it doesn't need to be that for everyone. It's just more about making the decision on how it expresses yourself without reacting to life so much. Yeah. Does that make sense?
So good. So good. And I do believe that someone listening needed to hear exactly that. So thank you so much for going there. Okay. So for people who want to connect with you, maybe they want to become your real life friend, where can they connect with you online and learn more about your programs too?
Well, I spend way too much time on Instagram. So
same girl.
Obviously, that's where we connected. So you can always find me there. I'm at Quinn.Tempest. Very colorful photos, I'm sure you'll see. And also my website has a lot of resources on all the things that we've talked about building clarity. I actually have a whole purpose quiz. It's 12 questions, and I designed it to help people uncover a possible purpose for themselves. It's not a tool for diagnosis. It's a tool for reflection. So if you have 3 minutes to take this, it could be something fun. And that's at quinntempest.com.
Perfect. And I'll make sure to link all of this so people can easily find it in the show notes. Okay, so we wrap the show up with one simple question, and really handing the mic over to you to deliver a message. If you just had one message to share with the women of the Powerhouse Women community, they're so aligned with the people that you impact every day. And what we ask is, what would be that message if you could just share one to help another woman or man, because we do have men that listen to the show, but take that next step in getting out of their own way and into action around their next big idea? What would be your one final tip?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think just because it encapsulates everything we talked about is know that you have the power to shape your life the way you want it to be. And that's going to look different for everyone, everywhere. But you don't have to be a victim to your circumstances. You can be the hero of your own story, and just start taking little actions here or there to follow what you're curious about, to follow what lights you up, and just to see where that goes without any expectation of a result, because that is the art of creative living, and that is the art of living magically, and that is really how you start to take the journey of creating your purpose.
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you for hanging out with us for a bit today, and I can't wait to connect again in person really soon.
Yay, thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who's listening.